Hello everyone, my name is Diane Trujillo and I'm the Alpha Coordinator here at St. Pat's. 8 years ago, my husband and I were really struggling in our marriage. We were pretty much at a crossroads. I realized our upbringings were so very different, and he had a very difficult path growing up. With that, the direction that we wanted to take our marriage was also very different. One night, after being up all night worrying and praying, I heard God say to me, "Bring him to me. This is greater than you." The next morning, I said to myself, "Okay, I will do this, but how do I do this?" Then I waited. Exactly 1 week later, I was in the parking lot at my son's kindergarten. And Holy Spirit, an acquaintance said to me in the parking lot, "Hey, do you and your husband want to try Alpha?" I said yes. And then it was up to my job to convince him how to join me. And I convinced him by offering him a great meal that was not cooked by me each week, and also childcare where we could get a break from taking care of the small boys. That was the beginning of our journey back to each other, and also the start of building our foundation on Christ. Each week, Jesus opened a window to Matt's heart, and lines of communication began to feel a little bit lighter and more in sync. It was the beginning. This was also where we both experienced for the very first time how to pray for somebody and pray with somebody. The second time I attended Alpha was just 2 years after that with my dad. My dad was living alone and nearing his late 70s. I asked him, "Dad, do you believe in Jesus?" And he responded to me, "I don't know, but I do believe in nature, and there must be something more out there." My dad had gotten married Catholic, but when we were growing up, he stopped going to church with us. He golfed every day in his retirement, and I was worried that although Dad seemed like he was in good health, he didn't have that much time left on earth, perhaps. I didn't want him to die without knowing Jesus. I thought to myself, if I don't bring my dad to Jesus, who will? That is when I invited my dad to take the Alpha course with me at St. Joe's in South Lyon. I just said, "Dad, you and I never get a time together. With all the crazy boys running around, this would be our chance to have a meal every week together for 10 weeks. I don't have to cook and you don't have to pay." My dad said yes. He said yes to spending time with me. So we began Alpha. But just 3 short weeks after we had begun Alpha, my dad called me and he said, "I'm not going to take your course anymore." And I asked him why. He said, "Well, it's keeping me up at night, and that's the only thing that's changed for me sleeping." So the next thing I did, I felt led to do by God. I wrote on a Post-it note to him, "When you go to sleep tonight, just say the prayer, 'Lord, reveal truth to my heart.'" I waited 3 days, and on Thursday, my dad called me, and he said, "I will continue your course." This course ended after 10 weeks, and nothing drastically really happened. But what I did notice is that my dad began praying at meals, and he started bringing God into conversations after that course. I knew God was working silently behind the scenes. This past year, my dad got very sick, and I was his caretaker. When it got to be too much for me to handle, I had to get him to the hospital. But before worrying about his body, I knew I needed to help him with his heart. My dad and I talked, and we had Father Miguel come over, and he offered him confession and a blessing. This was the most beautiful gift he was able to receive, and hadn't received confession in 40 years. After the ambulance had taken my dad to the hospital, we were not allowed to see him for 2 weeks. But the first night we were able to come back to the hospital, my husband and I went to visit him, and we asked him, "How are you?" He appeared peaceful, kind, and gentle in nature. But he said to us, "I haven't slept in weeks. The nurses come in every 3 minutes, and they're constant beeping in the hospital." At that moment, Matt and I used what we learned in Alpha. We placed our hands on his heart, and we prayed for Jesus to come into the moment and bring him peace. Almost immediately before our eyes, My dad fell into the deepest sleep, and we could tell by his very deep breathing. As he slept there with our hands on his heart, we heard him say, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And tears were coming out of his eyes as he slept. 2 days later, I was able to get my dad back into his home. And 4 hours after him being home, he passed away. He passed away in great peace, and I attribute this all to his journey before this. A week later, I went into his room for the first time, and I opened his very top drawer. This was his sock drawer, and there on the very top of everything was the Post-it note that I had forgotten I had even written him. The Post-it that said to ask God to reveal truth to his heart. God gave me this gift of confirmation through this experience that my dad had truly found him. So today, I ask you to accept this personal invite to take part in the Alpha course. We are offering it Sunday evenings, childcare and dinners provided. There's more information in our bulletin along with some more beautiful testimonies. I am personally inviting you today to personally think about who is on your heart right now that you too could invite. I believe Jesus has a gift for everyone that attends, and I invite you to come and open it, and I invite you to give this gift to others. And with that, just say thank you, and God bless you.